Today's story is the kind that tightens your chest set against a desert town holding its breath under the morning sun. It's where fate pulls a drifter, two widows, and a powerful enemy into the same narrow street. And it starts with one quiet arrival, nothing dramatic on the surface, yet powerful enough to decide who gets to stay and who gets erased. Before we kick off this adventure, don't forget to hit like on the video and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. I remember the night clear as a scar, the weight of a loaded Colt pressed to Silas Hargreaves' chest spring of 1893 Devil's Creek, Arizona territory. He'd been hunting me for the proof I carried, and now he was cornered. No fear in his eyes, only calculation, already drafting the story he'd sell the Federal Survey Office after my body hit the floor. Inez Calderon stood behind me in a silk nightdress lamplight, catching in her hair, breath coming short. Rowan Keeley held her shotgun by the stairs, knuckles bone white. "Pull it," Hargreave murmured. "Pull it, you bastard, and you'll hang for murder." "I could have. Maybe I should have." One squeeze and every trouble vanished. I didn't. I chose another road that night, and it bent my life forever. Maybe that made me a fool, or maybe it's why I'm still breathing to tell it. March 1893. I rode into Devil's Creek with $12 a horse that was more stubborn than alive, and enough ghosts to fill a graveyard. The panic had skinned me, clean cattle gone, ranch gone, everything I built after leaving the cavalry. And Devil's Creek, God help me, it was beautiful in the way dying things sometimes are. A silver boomtown run dry. 40 souls maybe clinging to dust and memory among abandoned claims. At the center sat the Silver Dollar Saloon, white paint, fresh green trim, sharp oil lamps, throwing warmth against the desert dusk. I pushed through the bat wings expecting sour beer and broken men. Instead, I saw her. Inez Calderon stood behind the mahogany bar ledger open pen, moving with quiet authority. Mexican-American, early 30s, black hair dark as water at night. She wore a burgundy dress that fit like it had been argued over by God himself. When she looked up, her eyes weighed me like a balance sheet. "We've got company," she said to the blonde woman raking chips at a corner table, her voice carrying a soft Spanish edge, smooth as old whiskey. Rowan Keeley turned. Irish-American, younger than Inez hair, pale as spun gold eyes sharp enough to cut glass. Her blouse was buttoned proper, somehow still honest about the woman beneath. She moved like someone who'd made hard choices and learned to stand by them. "You wear yourself like a soldier," Rowan said, studying my stance. A smile tugged at her mouth, half mockery, half test. "Officer." I nodded, easing onto a stool. That obvious Inez's lips curved, promising trouble. "We can offer a room, and a meal handsome." Then, softer question, is what brings a former cavalryman to a dying silver town with watchful eyes and empty pockets, smart women? Dangerous company. The word handsome carried just enough warmth to quicken my pulse. I took the whiskey she poured. It burned clean better than anything I'd tasted in months. "Passing through," I said. "Looking for work. Maybe a fresh start." "Fresh start," from what Rowan asked, sliding closer. "Greenhorn." The name stung because it landed true. I was drifting. That was when I should have lied, spun a tale about opportunity in mining country. Instead, something in their eyes, recognition, maybe pulled the truth out of me. "I lost everything in the panic," I said. "All of it. My business partner stole what the bank hadn't already swallowed. And my wife, she'd been gone 3 years by then. Consumption took her slow and sure, so when everything finally collapsed, I didn't fight it. I just let go. Figured drifting was easier than rebuilding." Inez Calderon's face softened at that. The way she looked at me, shifting, no longer weighing me, but guarding me. "Well, handsome," she said. "Devil's Creek has a habit of giving folks second chances. Just know we come with our own troubles, such as the women traded a look." Rowan Keeley answered first. There's a man. Silas Hargreave. She said the name like it tasted bad. He represents the Black Iron Combine, railroad interests. They want every remaining claim in this valley for a spur. Railroad money's good money, I said. It would be, Inez replied, if it was honest. They offer pennies, then turn the screws. What kind of pressure Rowan's jaw set hard? Paperwork harassment, frozen credit. And sometimes men with guns come knocking to talk about mineral rights. I took another look around the saloon. Clean floors, solid bar, lamps trimmed and tended. A place that made money despite the town's decay. You own this, inherited it, Inez said, from my husband, along with a small silver claim up canyon. Deeds are clean, we run straight. Then what's the problem? They shared another glance, longer this time. Measuring, deciding. Finally, Inez spoke, her voice lower now. The problem is we're the last ones standing, she went on. Everyone else sold, or was pushed out. Our claim sits exactly where Hargreave wants his rails. Then sell, I said. Take what you can. Rowan's eyes flashed. Why should we walk away because men back east decided they want it? A fair question, one I'd been asking myself for months. And there's more, Inez added quietly. We've seen what happens when corporations move in. They strip the land, bring their own crews, and leave nothing behind. Devil's Creek would be dead inside 2 years. I studied them. Inez calm and sharp-eyed. Rowan fierce, ready to bite back. Both smart, both strong. Neither willing to bend. And both looking at me like I might be the answer to something they hadn't dared say out loud. So what are you asking? I said. Inez leaned in close. I caught the scent of lavender and worn leather. Strength and danger wrapped together. We're asking if you'll stay a while, handsome, she said. A man with your kind of past could be useful around here. The way she said it told me she wasn't just talking about my uniform. It wasn't just about my time in uniform. 3 days later, I learned exactly what kind of storm these women were standing in. I was checking the saloon's rear door when the sound of hoofbeats carried on the dust. Old cavalry habits die slow. I glanced through the window and watched 6 men swing down from their saddles, tailored coats, polished boots, guns worn like badges of authority. They moved like men used to taking whatever caught their eye. The one in the fine-cut suit had to be Silas Hargreave. Mid-50s hair gone silver, posture straight, with the ease of a man long obeyed. His gaze swept the building the way a buyer sizes up property already picturing improvements. Inez Calderon stepped out from behind the bar as they came in. She'd changed into black fabric, clinging like it knew her shape by heart neckline, low enough to draw the eye without begging for it. Her hair was pinned high, the curve of her neck exposed. Every step carried intention, confidence on the surface power beneath it. Rowan Keeley took her place by the poker table in a green dress that sharpened her eyes and traced her waist. She shuffled a deck with calm hands that hid the tightness in her shoulders. Colonel Hargreave, Inez said evenly. What brings you to our door? His eyes lingered where they shouldn't before lifting to meet hers. Miss Calderon, Miss Keeley, I trust you've had time to reconsider our generous proposal. We have, Rowan said without looking up. The cards whispered between her palms. And the answer's still no. That's unfortunate. The word carried a threat. You see, ladies, the Federal Survey Office has raised concerns about irregularities in your business license. I stepped out of the shadows. What kind of irregularities? Hargreave's men stiffened, hands drifting toward leather. Hargreave himself didn't move. He studied me like a new piece set on the board. And you are someone who cares about these women's well-being. Inez shifted closer, near enough that her arm brushed mine. The touch sent heat through me that had nothing to do with whiskey. Our friend is considering a business partnership with us, Colonel. A partnership. Hargreave smiled, thin as winter light. What sort of business would that be, mister? He let the name hang. Rowan set the cards down and joined us, taking my other side. "Security consulting," she said smoothly. "Seems there's demand for it around here." Indeed, Hargreaves' eyes narrowed, trying to place me. "You carry yourself like a soldier, partner. What unit?" It was a test. I kept my face still. 7th Cavalry, long time ago. Something flickered in his eyes, recognition, maybe suspicion. "The 7th has a reputation." Then he smiled. "Tell me, did you know Captain Eamon Fitch killed at Wounded Knee in 1890? Cold spread through my chest. Eamon was my brother. I met his gaze. I knew of him. I answered with care. He filed reports about irregularities in military supply contracts papers that embarrassed people with real power. The picture snapped into place. Silas Hargreave wasn't only after the land. He was casting a line trying to tie me to Eamon Fitch's evidence. But he didn't have proof. Not yet. Inez Calderon's hand found mine, fingers lacing together. Warm. Steady. I felt her pulse racing all the same. "Gentlemen," I said evenly, "there's been a mistake. I'm just a drifter looking for honest work. Of course you are, partner." Hargreave adjusted his cufflinks, the false friendliness crawling under my skin. "Ladies, you have 48 hours to reconsider our offer." He shrugged. Territorial law can be unforgiving about compliance. When they rode out, the room went quiet and heavy. Rowan Keeley poured whiskey. Inez stood at the window watching the dust settle behind them. "They're hunting someone," she said softly. "Someone tied to those military reports." I looked up. "What do you know?" Rowan met my eyes. "A cavalry captain stopped here 2 years ago, right before Wounded Knee. He was carrying papers. Gun running to Apache bands," she continued. "Fraud in supply contracts, cooked payrolls. He said if anything happened, Inez finished the papers needed a trustworthy hand. You've had them this whole time?" I asked. She nodded. "Hidden in the mine shaft. We never read them, never used them. But somehow Hargreave suspects." I drained my glass. Thoughts racing. Eamon had always believed justice mattered. Now his fight was putting these women in the crosshairs. "So that's it," I said. "Not just the land?" "It's the evidence," Rowan replied, tight-voiced. "Which means we're bound together now." Inez turned from the window. Something in her face stole my breath. She crossed the room with that easy grace, stopping close enough for me to see the gold flecks in her eyes. "Tell me, handsome," she said quietly, "will you fight for something worth saving for people who matter?" Her fingers brushed my cheek, tracing the old scar an Apache arrow left years ago. The touch was gentle, protective, and it lit me up. "Because if you will," she whispered, "we could use a partner." Rowan's hand settled on my shoulder, electricity through the cloth. "What would you do, partner? Walk away from danger or stay for something worth dying for?" That night changed everything. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, thinking of papers hidden deep in the mine when soft footsteps stopped at my door. A soft knock, so light it almost vanished into the walls. Inez Calderon stood in the hall, silk nightgown, catching the moon as it spilled through the window. The fabric followed every curve, the kind that could test a preacher's faith. And I was no preacher. Her dark hair hung loose, framing a face that looked borrowed from an old master's canvas. "Couldn't sleep either," she murmured. "Handsome." The word was quieter now, meant only for the dark. I stepped aside and let her in. She crossed to the window, looking out over Devil's Creek's empty street. Moonlight traced her profile, the clean line of her neck, the gentle rise beneath the silk. "Tell me about your wife," she said softly. It was an odd thing to ask. Still, something in her voice pulled the truth from me. "Seraphine Fitch. I met her in Santa Fe when I was stationed there. She was kind," I went on. Gentle. Everything a soldier hopes to come home to. You loved her. I did. But love doesn't stop consumption. I joined her at the window. It doesn't keep death away. She died slow coughing blood while I held her hand and lied that it would be all right. In the dark, Inez's fingers slipped into mine. I know that kind of loss, she said. Tomas Calderon was a good man. Not perfect, but good. He died in a mine collapse trying to prove himself. We stood there with the moon and the weight of old grief between us. I'm afraid she admitted barely louder than breath. Not of Silas Hargreave. Not of losing the saloon. I'm afraid of caring again and watching someone get hurt because of me. I turned to her, close enough to catch the scent of lavender, close enough to see the vulnerability she kept hidden by daylight. Inez. She stopped me with a kiss. Gentle at first, uncertain, then deeper as my arms found her. Silk and warmth and need. When we pulled apart, breathless, she rested her forehead against my chest. "Stay with us," she whispered. "Not just for the fight. Stay because what? Because I haven't felt alive in 3 years," she said. "Not until you walked through those doors." Before I could answer, another knock, soft again. Rowan Keeley stepped in, fully dressed, hair tousled, like she'd caught the light under the door. Figured you two were having the same argument I've been having with myself. Inez stepped back, but kept hold of my hand. What argument, I asked. Rowan poured 3 whiskeys from the bottle on the table. Her green dress fit her like intention itself. Whether we're doing this the right way, standing up to Hargreave, protecting the town, keeping those papers safe. She handed us the glasses. "It's going to get ugly, kid. People might die." The word kid landed warmer, now claimed familiar, almost kind. "Probably," I said. "And there's something else." Rowan Keeley's eyes locked with mine over the rim of her whiskey. "Inez and I, we've been more than business partners for nearly a year," she said. "Shared a bed, shared everything, but we both know there's a piece missing." Inez Calderon's cheeks colored, but she didn't look away. "We care for each other," Rowan went on, "but we're not whole. Not the way we could be." Without what I asked, though, I already felt the answer. Rowan stepped closer, close enough for the scent of rose soap, close enough to see the pulse at her throat. Without someone who makes us feel like women again, someone worth standing up for. Inez's hand tightened around mine. "It isn't proper handsome," she said softly. "Most folks wouldn't understand. Out here," I said, "in a place like Devil's Creek, rules written back east don't carry much weight." Rowan nodded. "The 3 of us together, we'd be stronger than any of us alone. In business. In a fight." She glanced toward the bed. "In everything. I won't lie. The thought of these 2 remarkable women choosing me, trusting me, stirred things I'd buried with Seraphine Fitch. It wasn't just want. It was purpose. They saw something in me worth keeping. "So what are you offering?" I asked. Inez set her glass down and moved in close, her shoulder brushing my arm. "A partnership," she said. "All 3 of us. We stand against Silas Hargreave together. We protect this town together. We build a life together. And share a bed." Rowan added, smiling in a way that set my pulse running. The word partner had shifted warmer, now meant just for me. I looked at them, Inez steady and strong beneath her grace. Rowan fierce, loyal, sharp as flint. They were offering more than I had dared imagine, a future worth fighting for and danger to match it. Hargreave wouldn't quit until he had the land and the papers. Men would die before it ended. "If we do this," I said at last, "there's no turning back. We see it through. Whatever that costs," Inez said, kissing my cheek. Rowan claimed the other. Wouldn't have it any other way. "Partners," I said, pulling them close, feeling their warmth, their trust. "Partners," they echoed. Coyotes cried somewhere beyond town. But in that room with them in my arms, I felt something I hadn't known in years. I felt home. Dawn came too fast, and it brought Hargreave with 8 armed men. From the saloon's upper window, I watched them spread across the street, disciplined, overlapping lines of fire. Hargreave stood at the center, immaculate, in his tailored suit, death-dressed for a meeting. Inez stepped up beside me in riding clothes made for movement. Rowan took my other side hair, braided back, green eyes hard. "Time to finish this," I said. Together, handsome Inez whispered, squeezing my hand. I went downstairs and shoved through the bat wings, Eamon Fitch's evidence tucked tight against my chest. Morning light stretched long shadows across Devil's Creek's main street. "Colonel Silas Hargreave." I called my voice, carrying. "Didn't expect you this early." "Well," now he answered, mockery riding the distance if it isn't our mysterious drifter. "I take it you've reconsidered." "I have." I stepped out where everyone could see me, open, steady. "Seems you've been working off a bad set of assumptions." "Oh," he said lightly. "For starters, you believed the papers Eamon Fitch carried were the only copies." I drew the envelope from my vest and held it up. "My brother was sharper than you gave him credit for, Colonel. He made duplicates. I let the words land, sent them to friends in Washington, to people tied to the Federal Survey Office, to editors back east." For the first time, his confidence wavered. "You're bluffing, you bastard. So that's what fear did to a man's manners." "Am I?" I smiled, calm as a still pond. "How do you think the office reacts to proof a supply officer sold rifles to Apache war bands? Or when a territorial governor learns his appointees took bribes to look away?" Behind me, the saloon doors creaked. Inez Calderon and Rowan Keeley stepped out, each shouldering a Winchester with practiced ease. Doors opened along the street, the smith, the storekeeper, the assayer. The Dust Creek folk came out armed and resolved. "You made one mistake, Colonel," I said. "You thought this was about money. Land, deals, it's about home." Hargreave's men shifted, suddenly outnumbered. "This isn't finished," he said, but the steel was gone. "No," I agreed. "It isn't. Here's how it ends. The Black Iron Combine withdraws its offer permanently. You route your railroad elsewhere. In return, those copies stay buried. And if I refuse," I thought of Inez's soft smile, Rowan's fierce embrace, the life we were choosing. "Then we find out who's faster," I said. "Your hired guns or a man defending everything that matters?" The standoff held breathless. Then Hargreave nodded once. His men mounted, wheeled, and rode out in a plume of dust. Inez slipped an arm around my waist. Rowan pressed in at my other side. We watched them vanish into the morning. So Rowan said, grinning, "What now, partner?" The word carried weight, promise. I looked at the women who'd given me back my purpose. "Now," I said, "we build something worth keeping." That was 15 years ago. 15 years better than a broken cavalryman had any right to expect. Devil's Creek never died. The railroad came on our terms. The silver dollar grew into the finest house in the territory, Inez's sense, and Rowan's wit worth more than any vein of ore. As for us, well, some stories don't fit tidy rules. Love rarely does. Sometimes it's a widow who teaches you strength has many faces. Sometimes it's an Irish firebrand who shows loyalty runs deeper than blood. And sometimes it's finding family where you never thought to look. Inez Calderon and I were married in the spring of '94, proper ceremony, white dress, the whole honest business. Rowan Keeley stood as maid of honor, smiling like she carried a truth the world wasn't ready for. In her way, she did. We lost Rowan to pneumonia in 17. Inez and I laid her to rest on the hill above the mine shaft, where Eamon Fitch's papers stayed hidden until the day we fed them to the fire. Debts settled. Justice such as it comes. Even at the end, Rowan called me partner with that same affectionate edge. Inez went 2 years back. Cancer, the doctor said. She left quiet my hand in hers, whispering about Tomas Calderon and Rowan waiting somewhere past the desert line. To the last breath, I was her handsome. Now I'm 73, sitting in a house that's too still crowded with ghosts that smell like lavender and roses. Folks around town call me old man or brother when they're feeling kind. The young ones say mister when they need something. They don't know about the blood on these hands, the choices made where the light doesn't reach. The love shared by 3 souls who found one another out in the wild. Maybe that makes me a hypocrite. Maybe it makes me lucky. Maybe it just makes me human. Here's the truth, partner. Right and wrong aren't always clean lines. Sometimes you choose and then you live with it. Sometimes the only redemption you get is the kind you build with your own hands, and with the people willing to stand beside you when the shooting starts. If you've come this far, you know something about second chances, about love that refuses tidy rules, about fighting for what matters when the odds stack high. As for me, I'll raise a glass to those days, and to the ones who stood with me. May your aim be true and your whiskey smooth. Finally, let me send my deep thanks to you. Thank you for listening, and for allowing this story to speak to your heart. The Wild West still holds countless truths, some painful, some tender, all worth remembering. Stay with us, subscribe, comment, and invite others to discover these untamed stories, from our hearts to yours. Thank you for being part of this journey. Aviso Legal, Barra Disclaimer. Each story shared here is produced for storytelling enjoyment. Certain scenes may include fictional or dramatized elements inspired by historical circumstances. Although AI tools assist us in visuals narration and script development, the emotional tone editing and quality control are conducted by people to ensure meaningful experiences. We fully uphold YouTube's policies using no deceptive recreations or impersonations of real individuals. All creative resources are properly licensed. Unauthorized copying, re-uploading, or remixing is not permitted. Thank you for supporting the effort behind every episode we create.